Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again. Today I am giving up the juice on some can't miss spots. These are 5 locations that if you see it on the water, you should stop and fish it, because more times than not, these specific spots will produce at least a fish, if not numbers of fish. I get giddy when I see these on the water, or if I see them on my map. It's definitely something you don't want to pass up. So I'm going to give you the 5 spots that you cannot miss next time you're out on the water, whether you're in a boat, a kayak, or from shore. If you see one of these locations, you need to fish it. Before I get into them though, I do want to remind you guys that if you're looking to support the channel and want to purchase some tackle, please use the Tackle Warehouse affiliate link that is in the video description. It's a great way to support the channel, and I appreciate those of you that are using it. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, so these 5 spots are can't miss, like literally cannot miss. The first one is a duck blind. A duck blind is such a good piece of structure because more times than not, they are going to be put in areas where they're a little bit away from shore, and they create an isolated piece of structure. So you know they're going to be generally in shallow water, but they're not normally going to be up in the bank. They're going to be out on the shore, sometimes on a shallow point, sometimes on a shallow flat. But the reason they're so good is because they are an isolated piece of structure that provides shade. So if you're fishing down a shallow flat or driving down the lake and you see a duck blind, I don't care what time of year it is, you might want to think about fishing it. A lot of times they're only in that much water, but the bass are still there. For me, usually it's like either you catch a little guy or you catch a great big one. That seems like that's how it is. They are spots that replenish, because what happens is a fish may have been caught out of that duck blind, but 2 hours later, the next one swimming through that shallow flat finds that little shady spot and they pull up and make it home for a while. It's a great ambush point. It's just one of those spots that you can fish. It takes you 5 casts. You make 5 casts to a duck blind, you're either going to get bit or you're not, and you can move on. So it's not like a big commitment to go fish one. Just a simple spot. You can visually see it. I don't care where you're at in the country. Duck blinds do not disappoint. They work everywhere. So if you see a duck blind, you gotta hit it. Next up is what I call an island head. So an island head is the upstream side of an island that either could be a legit island, meaning it's emerging out of the water, so it's got actual trees and grass on it, but it also could be a submerged sunken island, which is like an old island that was in the river channel, and then when they flooded the lake, it created an underwater island. Well, if you are on a body of water that has any sort of current flow, like the TVA lakes or a man-made lake that has natural current flow through the lake, the upstream side of that island head is generally going to be a phenomenal place to fish, especially in the summer months, because that's one of those places that the fish will group up on a ledge. So if you have a submerged island head, go for it. If you happen to fish a small stream or river in your neck of the woods that has an emerged island, an actual island in it, the upstream side of that island will be a good place to fish, because you have the current flowing down, hitting the island, and then splits. Where you get that split, you've got a seam, which is a high percentage spot for a fish to be. Largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass, all will use that location. Again, generally speaking, it's a quick hit, meaning you can pull up, make a handful of casts. If there's an active fish there, they're going to bite pretty quick. The submerged island heads, where you're fishing maybe 20 foot of water, deep water type things, that may take a few extra casts, but again, you usually don't have to make that many casts to find out if there's active fish there. Next up, if you have an isolated dock, you need to fish it. And that isolated dock could be in the back of a cove, it could be on the main lake, but it's similar to the duck blind, meaning it's just a singular item that produces shade, it produces structure. So if you have fish that are running the bank in that area, they're going to make that dock home base. And because there's only one dock, they only have one choice as to where to go. So it's a high percentage spot. If you've got a shoreline or a cove or a bay that's got 10 docks in it, that fish can choose from 10 different locations. If it's got an isolated dock, a singular dock, they have one choice if they want a shade pocket, and that's where they're going to be. Again, it's a really good high percentage spot. So do not pass up an isolated dock. I cannot tell you the number of times I'll be running down a lake, I see an isolated dock, and I'm like, I got to hit that. It takes me 5 minutes. I fish it. I move on. More times than not, I catch a fish. Maybe it's not a great big one, but I catch a fish out of it. They replenish really quick, just like the duck blinds do. The next spot, number 4, is a bridge. No matter where you're at, any time of the year, a bridge is a high percentage spot. It's, you know, a bottleneck on a body of water. So if you have any current flow at all, whether it's natural current or wind-driven current, you will have a pinch point on that bridge, which creates feeding opportunity for fish. So bridges are great places to fish. Generally speaking, they're going to have riprap or some hard bottom around it, which fish like because you might have crayfish. If you've got, you know, shad in your lake, maybe they're spawning around it. It's just one of those places year round. They are great places to fish because you have easy access to deep water. You have pinch points. You know, generally speaking, you probably have 2 points. And even if it's a big long causeway where you don't actually have land points coming out, if it's a causeway, then you've got a bunch of pillars, and the fish utilize those pillars in the same manner. So bridges are phenomenal places to fish, no matter where you're at around the country or the season. If you happen to have a bridge in your area that you can hit, definitely go ahead and do that. The last piece of cover that makes me giddy every time I see it is a small floating mat. That mat could be a small patch of hyacinth. It could be a small patch of dead floating weed. It could be a small mat of milfoil. It could basically be anything but a small mat. A sawdust pile, which is just floating wood debris from heavy rains. If you've got a small mat, and what I mean by small is anything that's probably like, you know, the size of your car or smaller, it creates an isolated piece of cover that the fish will get under, and it makes a simple target for you to fish. 3-4 flips into it, 3-4 casts around it, and you're probably going to find out if there's an active fish that's using it or not. But the key here is it creates that really quick target that the fish more times than not will use. I cannot tell you the number of times I've caught fish out of an isolated mat. Like I said, whether it's hyacinth or floating dead grass, whatever it is, it creates a shade pocket, which is a good ambush point for the bass, and they will use it across the country, no matter what time of year. If it's spring and winter, they use it because that mat will absorb sunlight and absorb heat, so they use it for heat. If it's in the summer, they use it because it's shade, blocking them from the sun. It doesn't matter. They're great targets. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've caught fish by fishing mats. So these are 5 items, guys. If I happen to see when I'm on the water, I get excited because I know it's a quick target that probably will hold a fish, and it gives me an easy way to catch a few extra fish, which increases the productivity throughout the day. And you never know, you got a shot at catching a big one from any of these. So if you've got other pieces of target or pieces of structure that you love to fish, if you see it, it gets you excited, throw it in the comment section so that the rest of us can see it and learn from your experiences as well. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, more tips coming tomorrow.